Hey guys, welcome back to the course. So in this lecture, we're going to talk big picture. We're going to talk macro understanding. We're going to talk about business life cycles. Now, for a lot of you out there who want to become an entrepreneur, but don't understand the basics of business, there's one thing that you really need to understand. All businesses have 4 distinct phases. Once you understand this, it will help you understand how businesses transition, how do entrepreneurs' roles within their businesses transition, and how do the skills and personality traits of an entrepreneur aid them in each section of their business. So the first part of any business life cycle is the pre-launch section. That's the part where we haven't yet built anything. We haven't yet taken any money from anyone. This is a section where an entrepreneur has spotted an opportunity, is planning to tackle the market opportunity, is gathering their resources, but has not yet started selling something or bringing in any money. At that phase, entrepreneurs are typically by themselves or with a co-founder or a partner. This is all kind of thought exercises. This is mental. This is research. This is a lot of figuring out what you have available and then moving forward. The second section is actually the startup section. Now, later we're going to define startups and we're going to give you a different definition but for the sake of this lecture, we're just going to call it the startup phase. Well, because they're starting up. This is where you've taken everything you've done in the pre-launch section of the life cycle and now you're actually going out and doing it. You started to bring in your first customers, your first dollars. You started hiring employees, potentially contractors, but you're still at a very small operation. Typically at this part of the life cycle, the entrepreneur is doing a lot of different things. Really hard to say what exactly the entrepreneur is doing. At this stage, well, they're doing kind of anything. They're answering phones, they're being in sales, they're doing customer service. They're doing really anything that's necessary because at the very beginning, when you're starting up a company, you're starting up a business, a lot of things are unknown and you're kind of experiencing growing pains. So an entrepreneur is the chameleon. They're the person that can fit any role depending on what's needed. Now, the third phase of the business life cycle is the growth phase. Growth phase is generally what happens after the startup phase. You generally go from 4 or 5 people and you start growing to 100, 200, 300, even 1,000. At this point, you'll see a general trend upward in terms of revenue and employees and client base. This is the part where startups start spending tons and tons of money to bring in clients as quickly as possible. This is generally where they're trying to tackle as much market share or tackle as much of the potential market as they can. At this stage, the entrepreneur is really settling into one specific role. They're either going to be the CEO, the person who orchestrates the band and works only with high-level executives, or they get relegated to a different position, something that they're more willing to do. Give you an example, if you look at Google, you had 2 entrepreneurs, 2 co-founders. If you take the example of Sergey Brin, he was someone who was a co-founder, did everything in the startup stage, and then when we got to the growth stage, he stepped backwards and started working on specific projects, but not the entire organization as a whole. And then the last phase is maturity and potentially decline. Now, the last stage makes up the majority of the companies you know of or heard of. Any large Fortune 100, Fortune 500, Fortune 1000s, that Fortune 1000 company is in the mature stage. Typically, you're in multiple countries, multiple cities. You could have multiple offices. You're generally at a point where your company is still growing, but the growth rate itself is slowing down. Decline typically happens after a market is so well developed or so saturated that profitability is taken out of the market and the company that was there selling the same product starts losing sales or losing profit. Typically, companies try to expand at this point or pivot into something else. We've seen this all over the place. Typically, a company will do one thing really, really well. Once that one product or service gets mature and starts to decline, they'll split off and start doing other things simultaneously. Most smart companies will do that early on, even in the growth stage. So think of it that way. There's 4 specific stages. Entrepreneurs are crucial to the first 2 stages. They're important in the third, and then the fourth, they're generally obsolete. Now, it's obviously not the case that you don't see entrepreneurs running mature companies. It's just also very common that they leave and go start something else, and a professional CEO is running the company at that point. At the very beginning, though, they are everything, and the success of the business falls completely on their back. Okay, so keep that in mind. First you plan, then you are in a startup phase, then you'll focus on growth, and then you'll eventually focus on maturity and trying to avoid decline. Now, not all businesses make it all the way to the end. A lot of them fail in the startup phase, a lot of them fail in the growth stage, and a lot of them can't differentiate themselves in the mature phase and they end up declining into the abyss. Okay guys, see you in the next lecture.